eye on. See if there's more folks coming in. So thank you guys for coming today. Our charge today is to kind of do a recap of the QPI training number 6. And if you recall, we had a panel discussion that talked about, kind of the pearls of wisdom that those that have been practicing QPI had to share with us. And then also gave us some examples, tangible examples of how QPI can be used within the child welfare system. So I'm hoping that you guys had a chance to attend the panel discussion. If not, I know it's out on your Champion portal. I did take the liberty to kind of just go through it and pull out what I thought were kind of some of the key points, and we have that in the PowerPoint. But again, just acknowledging that this is the last QPI gathering, and so congratulations, and so excited for you guys. Again, I clearly get what a commitment this was, especially, because of what you do with your jobs and your commitment to working with children and parents and families. And this was on top of that. And I clearly get that. So I'm hoping that you feel it was beneficial. I so enjoyed working with all of you. The part about wrapping up is that I'm all about relationships, and I feel like I've gotten to know you guys and have so really appreciated that. So I'm excited to hopefully see you. There's a in-person California QPI conference in April. And so as trained champions, we'll be getting information about that in terms of dates and location and hotel accommodations if you need them. And I'll be there. So it'll be fun to meet some of you guys in person. So, and again, hey, Mr. Nathan, how are you? Good to see you. I'm still letting some folks in. So how's your world, Nathan?
My world, just in the scope of this context, I am happy to be alive. There's I have a lot of things that are going well for me.
Okay, it's good to hear.
Yeah.
I love that. You were hesitating and I could tell you were trying to choose your words. I thought, uh-oh.
No, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on that's
good. Oh yeah.
that's localized that I find obnoxious, annoying, and generally displeasing. But
well, I love it where you said, lucky to be alive. I mean, a lot of it is just, when I think about being a QPI champion, we look at people that are resilient and people that are not afraid of change and willing to call out when things need to be changed. And so we'll talk a little bit about why you guys were chosen to participate in this. So Nathan, I was just sharing that I actually did a quick PowerPoint kind of just summarizing the training, she says, trying to pull that little baby up. Here we go. All right. So what I chose to do, and again, I'll be really hoping you guys participate in this, is what I thought were some of the pearls of wisdom that were shared to us by our panelists at our training. If you recall, we had representation from Florida and California, specifically Santa Clara, Minnesota. Who was the other person? There's 4. Oh, Patty was also, so we had 2 from Santa Clara, actually, Patty Bowles and Diana Masis. So what I really kind of was thinking was some of the pearls of wisdom were, number one, that QPI isn't work, it's reframing our work. I know we've kind of talked about this, and I know that many people have pushed back. And so when you think about your training on the art of persuasion, if people just say, you tell me it's not more work, and it truly is. The work is just making sure that what you're already doing reflects the QPI commitment and the QPI principles. So if you already have a placement policy, is there a way to reframe that to include the QPI principles about putting the child's needs first, about supporting and valuing relationships and partnerships? We have many people that already have resource parent agreements that says, I will make sure the child gets medical care and their educational needs are met. Can we add in there that they are committed to making sure that that relationship occurs between the resource parent and the birth parent? So it's truly making sure that everything that we do reflects doing our work through the QPI lens. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was that there'll be days when you're going to really feel like you're alone and that no one is listening. And so it's really important that you have a support system and that this doesn't fall on one person. When I met with the group earlier today, Santa Clara is light years ahead of me in terms of really embracing QPI, but they have designated a lead. When I asked her, I said, do you ever feel isolated? Do you ever feel like people aren't listening? She said, absolutely not. And she goes, I've got a wonderful team. We're all are committed to implementing QPI in our daily work. And I just thought, and all I could say was, I just wish that for everybody. Every agency is at a different spot with QPI. I've met with Fresno, who is really now for the first time getting leadership on board, and they have a plan and they're developing a QPI team. I know in another county where they had a QPI liaison who was just reassigned to another job. So their challenge is to find a designated lead, but because they sent 10 more people through the training, she has a team. She will have a support. Does that make sense to you guys in terms of, even if you have designated a lead, that's important that that lead doesn't have to work alone? Thoughts? Think about your own respective agencies. Do you feel that you have designated somebody as a lead?
Yeah, for example, I'm the lead for Kern County. Kern
All right,
County is
well,
it's quite big, and so I definitely need more collaboration and help and all those things to share ideas. So for sure,
Yeah.
I agree.
Right. So you're hoping to get to the point where Santa Clara is, where you don't feel like you're standing alone or being a lone voice in the wilderness. I hear you. And we will help you with that. I think, I know with Carol Schofer as the California site lead and myself, our goal is to make sure that you're not so isolated, Melissa. So I really appreciate that feedback. That's our goal, is to make sure that you are feeling supported. Alyssa, Marie, thoughts? Where are you at with your agencies and leadership, or the lack thereof?
Which Alyssa?
I'll take whatever I can get. Alyssa, yeah, go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, I can comment. I'm lucky enough to be part of Santa Clara County, so I feel like we have pretty strong leadership, although we are in flux, after Amber leaving. So I'm looking forward to somebody else taking the reins. But I think the blessing in that transition period is that we've had, some talks amongst the rest of us that are not the leaders, and just trying to figure out how to move forward.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Marie. Yeah, Amber is a tough pair of shoes to fill, right? She was amazing.
Definitely.
Yeah. CDSS, what are your thoughts? Are you feeling like you're going to be able to continue some of this momentum? I know more CDSS staff are participating in this new round of training. Has the QPI leadership fallen to anybody within CDSS, or is it, I know that we've got many different departments, Albert, from training to policy, et cetera.
Yeah, I don't know that in our department or our licensing division, do we have someone identified as a QPI lead. We certainly are invested in, I know, even on the program level, on our program, which is for congregate care. We have a lot of people that attended this last champions training, and we have people that are being sent for the next training, but I don't know that anywhere we actually identified anyone in particular as a lead.
Yeah, I totally get that. And our charge as QPI staff are to make sure that you are aware of the new CDSS staff that are going through the training, that they're aware of you guys that are wrapping up the training. The last thing we want to do is to have individual, vacuums of QPI energy. If there's the way to make sure that you guys can come together and support each other and, come up with kind of maybe even an advisory committee or a work group, that would be just lovely. So
And
thanks.
I would like to add, I'm sorry, Diane, I would
No,
like
go
to
ahead.
add to, on what Albert was saying, that at least our leadership, it has interest and it has invested, like he was saying, because they, got a couple of new people to join in versus just to say, no, it's not time efficient, we're not gonna do it anymore. So I think that says a lot that at least they got a new couple more people to join in for the next set of training versus just to say no. And I've talked to my manager and I've told them that for Fresno that I like to support them on their kickoff and so forth. And he's like, no, go for it. And so, at least that part that we can move forward with that, at least support our counties and our areas with QPI. And they want to hear about it because the last time I met with all the regional managers, and I informed them about QPI and they were interested and they said, well, maybe we can have you guys do feedback and give us some education on that. So I think that has a lot to say, like Albert was saying, we're getting support and we don't have a leader because, we're all statewide, but
Right.
at least for our leadership, they're giving us positive vibes and encouraging us to move forward and keep going with it.
Thanks so much, Juanita. That's just super awesome. And it's just such good news, frankly, for CDSS leadership to, send so many of you through this round and then sending more the next round and just kind of keeping that momentum. So that's awesome. I appreciate that. One of the other things that I think one of our panelists said had to do with bringing the right people to the table. I'm pretty sure this was Trudy from Florida, Miami specifically, where when we're expanding QPI, to be really cognizant about who we're inviting to go through the training. Bringing the right people to the table. People have reputations for change, being reliable, that they are indeed idea generators, and can act professional and have lived experiences. Again, when I read this description of having the right people at the table, I think of you guys, because I really believe that your participation in this results in your ability to be a change agent and your ability to continue the conversation about QPI. Now, one could argue, what if we bring the people to the table that are resistant to change? Or what if we bring people to the table that, I've had people say to me, I was voluntold that I had to do this training. And I've had people say to me, I'm just doing this to meet my training requirements. The good news is that at the end of the training, I'm hearing, I'm glad I did it. I'm hearing I was able to get a sense of kind of how to remind myself about that it's really all about the children. Any thoughts about that? Do you feel that you have people that that will be resistors to this? Carmelia is nodding. That was interesting, yeah. What do you think?
I'm thinking that you're spot on about it isn't more work, it's reframing our work, but somehow in my agency, administration has created it to be more work and pretty disheartening where, there's a group of us, a solid group of like 30 or 40 of us that are coming together monthly in person and having a QPI meeting, essentially, for the community. We're having great conversations. We're doing really great work together, doing bios for all of our resource families, which is just really, really exciting for us. And for whatever reason, our administration is like basically telling us that the buy-in just really isn't there and that we need to lay out like if we had Carol come or you come up for a site visit, like we have to lay out and plan this whole, a production show for you guys. And I don't know if like what the intent behind it is. It was really disheartening to me. Like, I didn't really understand why we didn't have the buy-in, considering that the cost is the benefit far outweighs the cost, you know, as far as I'm concerned, and we have the proof. And so I just really like, yeah. And then as far as like pointing, like who is the point person for QPI in our organization? Yeah, we really can't, we really are not able to identify who our lead is, and we haven't been given the authority or the authorization to like hit press play. Like, who's it harming for us to do like resource bios on our resource families? We're not just disclosing like any information that they don't want to. We're beta testing it in our work group with QPI caregivers that have been doing, you know, this work with us for years, and want to do it and want to be part of the change in the QPI movement. And so I don't know, I'm just rather disheartened, and I want like somebody to come up here and help us like shake it up a little bit. Because, like, I don't know, with a little more attention to this, like I see my job getting so much easier, you know. That's really how I feel.
I love that. Yeah, but I hear you too, that your ability to really implement the change is, like you said, you're not able to press play. You're in pausing, you're not getting the buy-in from leadership, etc. And this is really, I mean, first of all, I really appreciate your honesty. That's huge. And again, this is just so reflective how different agencies are at different places, and we can help. Carol Schoffer and I can definitely help. So I will reach out to you guys in your county and continue this conversation to try to get some forward momentum, is what I hear you saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Nate should add, because it's like this double, I don't know how to explain it. We've got this really good thing going on, and our admin is gaining from it, but then there's these like hidden barriers to actually doing the good work, if that makes sense. You know, I don't know if that's too abstract. We've been doing this all morning, this like vagueness, but you know, it's like they sit in these meetings and they're like cheering us on, right? Oh my gosh, these are so great. These bios are so great. And then Nate and I come back to the office and we're like, okay, let's do it, right? Let's get the comfort call. Let's do a comfort call for every family, every placement, every time. And crickets, man. Crickets. And no reasoning as to why can't we press play? Don't you want us to make our organization better? And on top of that, like, we are at a crisis. We have no social workers, like supervisors carrying cases, you know, it's not good.
It's not good. I agree.
There's like a bunch of hiring happening up here.
Well, and it sounds like it's imperative that you guys start pressing play, because that's the only way that you guys are going to be able to, you know, really see some improvement in your system. Albert, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to ask Camelia, so the work group that you referred to, you organized that of your own accord. That wasn't officially appointed or anything?
It's kind of evolved. They've had the QPI work group for years. Nate, you want to speak to that a little bit? And then COVID happened and we morphed it into an in-person relaunch. Kind of once we got into the championships training, we did a relaunch and we went live and in person. And now
it sounds to me that you are the definition of a champion.
Thanks, Albert.
Yeah, but you're not getting the support.
No, I think,
yeah,
I think if I could add, like, I mean, I don't know how interesting this is or how useful it is for other people, but like I think there's, like, I'm referring back to like one of the talks that Carol gave about, you know, street level bureaucracy and stuff. It's like there's actually, and I don't know if this is going to sound too conspiratorial, but I don't think it is. I think it's like a matter of like how institutions work and incentive structures. Like, everything is good until it's like entrenched bureaucracy has an incentive to keep the status quo, and then if they act, so it's good to be like, say nice things and do like cheerlead and say happy things. But like, I think it's harder for people to like, okay, like I'm gonna give you full permission to actualize what I say that is my value and what you say. And so Humboldt's a little unique because there's like this like huge pockets in it, like most of our staff and supervisors, PMs, directors, all the way up, like they're new in tenure. Then there's like a group of people who've been around for a long time who's like, nothing bothers us. Like, oh, we've seen this over and over again. And so I think that there's a group that has a mastery of the subject matter that we don't have to like think things through that much. And so we can like do stuff. And so that's kind of what we are. We just, because there's a vacuum of leadership, we just do it. We don't ask permission. We just do it.
Right.
And so, and there's a lot of stuff that's happening, but then like there's a push because if we actually do what everyone says we want to do, it's going to be disruptive, not in like a bureaucratic way per se, but in like, it's just uncomfortable to like, hey, like every we're going to do something different. And the push is to say, slow down, or like the natural response of people above us is to say, oh, have you slow it down? Have we done da 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 da? And so that's kind of like the natural push, I think. And then, we like, I think have the freedom to like have confidence that like to do really like radical stuff, not necessarily like in ideology or in values, but in like tasks. For instance, we like I was up our last meeting, we have another colleague, Jamie, who's on the phone. Who's on the call with us, and we started our meeting with of a playing of Mary Oliver poem. Of like the first question that's on your slide is like a QPI is not more work; it's just reframing, right? So we like, I think that's true. There's like it's like way more true than I think is we're used to like processing like things like mechanically, bureaucratic, in what does the policy say? So our theme last month was like no before you say no, right? So KNOW before you say no, NO. And so what we think is like people are used to being incentivized to know, like, is it against the law, is it against policy, versus there's,
Am I gonna get in trouble?
am I getting in trouble? There's other things that are at play that are way more true, I think. And so when we led with this Mary Oliver poem,
I think you should play it. Would you guys be opposed if it's a minute long? Do you have it, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, I can, if you
should try to find it. If Diane would let us.
Of course, yeah, that sounds great.
With our QPI work group, and it's opened up a wonderful dialogue conversation, and he framed it rather well in regards to when you listen to the words, apply it to the work that you do, the families that you work with.
I just made you co-host, Nate, if you want to.
Yeah, let me cue it up here. Let's see here.
And Jamie Peterson, who's also a champion here today, like at the end of our like graduating, we should walk down the aisle. Stage. But we were having this conversation, and in the conversation, like she organically was like, dude, it reminds me of a Mary Oliver poem, and she recited the line of this poem, and that's how we really shaped our whole QPI work group around.
Oh, lovely.
It was really cool.
Great.
It's kind of you'll see, Womani. I don't want to say anything about the
No,
poem.
that's fine. And how's it going, Nate? Are you able to, is it an audio?
Yeah, no, like it's a video, and like it's a minute long. So and what how we led this with is like so here, let me ask this group for help, because it's I want to workshop it a bit, because for us it's a really poignant and it's direct, but it's hard to translate because I think the whole system is used to being very bureaucratic, right? Just very used to like viewing things narrowly, like anyways. And I think what this does is like allows us to like see the issues up in a different way.
I love it.
I think that's more like at the core of what gets in the way. Anyways,
Okay. Thanks for
and
that.
and if that's not true, let us, or if that's way off base, we can only.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think anybody would disagree with that, Nate. I truly, yeah.
Okay, can you see this?
We sure can.
Okay.
By Mary Oliver. Here is a story to break your heart. Are you willing? This winter, the loons came to our harbor and died, one by one, of nothing we could see. A friend told me of one on the shore that lifted its head and opened the elegant beak and cried out in the long, sweet savoring of its life, which, if you have heard it, you know is a sacred thing, and for which, if you have not heard it, you had better hurry to where they still sing. And believe me, tell no one just where that is. The next morning, this loon, speckled and iridescent and with a plan to fly home to some hidden lake, was dead on the shore. I tell you this to break your heart, by which I mean only that it break open and never close again to the rest of the world.
Wow. That is powerful. It's not to break your heart, but to break your heart open. I love that, you guys. Thank you for sharing. And I agree, Nate and Camellia, that whole concept of our bureaucracy almost doesn't allow us to do that. I mean, I think our bureaucracy is, Nate has defined it as self-sustaining. We're driven to be able to be self-sustaining. The reality is what QPI does is that we want you to break your heart open to allow it, that no child is not the focus, or no child is hurt within our system. So I really appreciate that. My commitment to you guys with Humboldt is that you'll be hearing from me, and you'll be hearing from Carol. And we want to talk with you guys before we talk to leadership, because I think it's really important. You guys remember, this is from the bottom up. These are people that receive the services and people that are providing the services that knows what needs to change, and you're willing to do it. You're ready to press play. So we can help you guys even after this training. To that point too, is that you've done 6 months worth of training, and props to all of you. It has just been an honor to work with you. You have it's the tip of the iceberg. You are change agents. The work will be carried forward in your capacity, whatever that may be within your respective agencies. We're not going away, QPI, for sure. So stay strong, Humboldt.
Can I just indulge and ask people, like, is that relevant to the message of of your first question of it's not more work, it's just reframing, like, or is it too abstract and too obscure, and does it need to be, because anyways, I'm just I want to get some feedback on whether it's just too much.
And I will shut up and let others respond. Thoughts?
I think only if you've had the training, then that what you just showed makes sense. Because I think with COVID, it kind of enabled even more so for the normalization of how things were to stay as they were, instead of wanting to adjust and transition and move forward with things that can be done differently. And, with my specific organization, being able to come here, I just got offered a new position within my organization to be half a mentor parent and also have someone that has a foot in the committees and in the groups to be able to learn these new ways, ideas that I can also, implement to my coworkers. We are going to start picking up on doing monthly meetings with our supervisor, in which I want to be able to, since we'll all be in the same place, then bring QPI initiative qualities to the group, so then we can learn as one, because the way that we do our work needs to be of quality. Because I do want there to be different outcomes. I don't want to see clients come back. I want them to reach out for the support to prevent having to redo the same thing, in hopes of having a different result, when if they can just take what is learned and taught now to prevent such time, I want to say time wasting, but it kind of is, because we know of the knowledge, right? Yet, we're still going to touch the stove even though we know it's hot, but I want us to get to the point where we look at the stove.
I
And I
love
want
it.
it to be where we turn it off, and we don't react, and we don't self-sabotage. And I always say common sense isn't common sense, because it's like, isn't it though?
I know.
So,
It's so true. But I also hear such a humanness, Alyssa. I mean, I think you named it in terms of, it's because we've gone through this training that this poem makes so much sense. There's a humanity to it, and that's what you want to bring in your new position. So I'm so excited for you. Very
Yeah,
cool.
the humanity piece is so true. And I've listened to this now several times over the last week in planning this, and I haven't really chimed in. I'm not one to like interpret poetry or even like get lost in, this type of stuff. But listening to it this time, like all I could, like, okay, let's really try to do this, Camellia. It's exercising a different part of your brain. But I think about how there's this, I don't know what it is, it's like promoting normalcy, but also promoting inquisitiveness. And when I listen to like, the poem, and they're talking about, this longing for home that, we don't know about, and this beautiful lake that they're off to go to, right? Making this like, we don't know. And how do we ask more questions so we know, what the child in our care's life was like before? What was their culture in their home? What did they value? What did it look like? And how do we start paying attention to that and honor the uniqueness and beauty that each family that we work with brings to this highly structured bureaucratic place, and pay attention to that. Like that loon on I can't believe I'm doing this, Nate. That loon on the beach, that wasn't their home beach, like, but as a foster parent, like, yeah, they're coming into your beach and landing on your shore, harmed, separated from their people, trauma, all of that. And we fail as an organization to pay attention to that home origin, that origin story. And it's just not enough to say, oh, we get it in the disposition report. We hear that story.
Our
No.
placement policy covers that. Yeah, no, it's not enough.
And so like, I do think that, it is very abstract, but if you sit with it, there's something beautiful about really what that means in our work, that heartbreak, that despair, and the beauty that comes from when we pay attention to it, and we're with it, and we, are aware that it's part of the process. It's called Lead. The poem is called Lead.
Lead, L-E-A-D.
By Mary.
So can I ask other people, like this is like a sincere technical question, like, because I do think it presents the information of QPI in a different way that says like, that everyone uses the term like humanizes, that like doesn't view our kids and caregiving transactionally, right? That says like up and a lot of things like what QPI says is like it's about love, right? So this is almost the same thing. Like you cannot like our policies and procedures almost do the opposite. That says here, let's set things up for you to be one step removed so your heart doesn't break. And what this poem says, no, it's the opposite. You have to allow your heart to break, or else you can't do the work. Blah blah blah. And so, I'm just curious from other people, like how does that come through? And then how do we present or frame this poem in a way that will help deliver that message in a more resonant way, more visceral way, or a way that's not oftentimes penetrating when we talk about transactions and policy. And I think it's an opportunity, but I can't. I'm having trouble delivering it to the punch that I think it deserves. Is my question clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Maggie chimed in and said maybe start with a concrete example of a story. And I love what you're saying, Maggie, because it's so funny. When I used to write legislative testimony for our county commissioners, I had data, and then they came back to me and said, tell me a story. I want to hear about a personal impact. And Maggie, to your point too, is that one of the things, because at some point in that conversation, I want to ask you guys about, is there anything we can do to improve in this training? And someone had mentioned earlier this morning, we always need a foster youth and we always need a resource parent that will team every single training. Art of persuasion, branding, that those are the voices that need to be heard. We need to hear their personal stories and whatever topic of training that we're having. So that, Maggie, thank you for that. That's a really great suggestion, is starting with the story and then maybe following up with the poem. I do want to just remind you guys though, remember, I don't feel QPI has given you permission to be a good social worker. We're trying to help you create an agency that allows you to be a good social worker, that supports you to be a good social worker. And then I get stuck with, you're trying to do that and you're stuck because of this disconnect with leadership. That was just kind of my thoughts. We talked about, go ahead, Ruben.
I was just thinking about early in my career, very early on in my career, when my two oldest boys were just toddlers. And I would work with families who had toddlers placed in their home. And I used to think about how my kids only spoke in a language that only I understood or their mom understood, because we were with them every day, right? We knew what article of clothing was sort of their security clothing. We knew what their favorite toy was. We knew what their favorite food was. We could interpret their gibberishness, and we understood what they were saying. And sometimes I would visit the children in the foster homes and our resource homes, and the children were talking, and I knew that the foster parents didn't understand what these children were saying. And how could they possibly know where is that child's comfort and security coming from, right? What language does this child respond to? What mannerisms does the child respond to? And so I think that for me, that poem, Breaking Open the Heart, for me early on in my career, that's sort of what helped me to have empathy and the sympathy for the parents and the families that we worked with, because I had that personal experience. It's like, if you took me as an adult and you dropped me in some foreign country and I was told I could not have any of my luggage, I could not have any of my personal belongings, I could not speak the language, I could not eat the food that I'm familiar with, how would I feel? Like, how would that make me feel? I wouldn't like it. I don't think any social worker, I don't think anybody we know would like that experience of having to go to some foreign country and be somewhere where we couldn't speak the language. Exactly. Right. And we weren't familiar with the food and the customs, and we didn't know, where we could go to feel safe and that sort of thing. And so I think that having that perspective early on in my career really helped me to have that understanding. And I think that that's why QPI is so important, right? Because you can't have effective service if you're not having great communication and you're not involving everybody who's impacted.
Mhm.
Right. And I know that
Right.
early, I had personal experience also where I went through a very difficult divorce. And I remember early in my divorce, I was very angry. I was very bitter. There was nothing that anybody could tell me that took away the sting and the feelings that I had towards my ex. Right. And I saw the way that it impacted my children because they weren't getting the best of their parents. And so later on, I had to learn that I, as an adult, needed to find a way to get along with my wife. And we needed to have healthy communication and healthy interactions. And our children needed to see us together being one, right? And I think if you could put that out there for like resource parents and social workers, and it's like, look, we know, like, unless both parents are working together in the best interest of children, you're not going to be doing your best work for these kids.
Excellent.
Right.
So
And so you have
well
to
said.
have, I think there have to be those kind of real stories that really get to the meat of what we're trying to do. Because it's one thing to call yourself a social worker, but if you're just so busy just writing reports and trying to make the referrals and trying to make that home visit because it's due this month, but you're not really engaging and not really listening and understanding, then you're just kind of going through the motions of the human piece.
Exactly. Oh, I hear so many wonderful things, Ruben, and what you said. I mean, they're part of that is just walking a mile in their shoes. Put yourself in their shoes. And your analogy of it's like if an adult going to a country where you don't speak the language and you don't have this routine, you don't have your comforts, etc. You're right. That's exactly what we're talking about. Thank you for sharing that, Robin. And that's huge. It really is. Thank you. What a great conversation. I just love it because it's like, again, it reminds you about why you went into social work in the first place. And it's like, it's so much more than that. It's, again, creating an environment that allows you to provide the empathy and the passion and the humanity to, children that never asked to be put in the system, never asked to be put into foster care. Like you said, it's all about making sure that the child is the focal point of everything that we do. In spite of maybe my, button heads with juvenile corrections, because this kid also has a PO, can we just get regrounded and reconnected about what's in the best interest of the kid? No one can really argue about that. But does our system allow us to do that?
Diane, I wanted to share that
Yeah.
at one time I was county liaison. So one of my duties, especially when resource family approval came out, was to train counties on resource family homes and so forth. And one of the activities that we would do is that everybody would come in, get together with their colleagues. It would be different counties, get together on the table with their colleagues and get all comfortable, put out their drinks, their food, and so forth and so on. And my co-trainer and I, we would just watch them and we get them all situated. So we're like, okay, we're going to start. And we call out numbers. I go, all right, everybody pick up your stuff and move to this table, and we direct them to a different one. And so they were now at a table with different people, different counties, and they had to move everything. So we asked them, well, how did that feel? And some of them would say, that was uncomfortable. Here, and they were honest. Well, here I'm with different people. I don't even know them. And I had to pick up all my stuff. I was already comfortable. I mean, they were saying all this. And we told them, well, now you know how foster children feel when they're being displaced. And they have to pick up all their stuff. And they have to move to somewhere where they, meet with individuals that they never met before. And that's where you guys are at now. And also, you're picking up your stuff, you're putting everything in your bags because, they brought us stuff out of their briefcases. I go, can you imagine these kids where they have to put everything in a garbage bag? So, it was a good empathy feeling for them, how kids felt when here they're the county and they're the ones moving the kids from place to place. And so it was a good understanding now. And some of them, like I said, were real honest. It's like, oh, okay, now, kind of got a feeling of what the kids go through when they're moved from house to house.
It is so true. What a great example, Juanita. Yeah, that is just so awesome. And Juanita, Ruben gave you a shout out in chat. He remembers the days before you were at CDSS. I have a similar example in our foster parent, resource parent training. We were trying to really build empathy for birth parents. And it's so much easier to say, oh my God, can you believe what he did? It was he or she did to their child that resulted in them being in foster care. So we did balloons. We said, okay, so you're a birth mom and you have a plan, a case plan that you need to do to get your children back. So the first balloon is parenting education. Second balloon is finding secure housing. Third balloon is steady employment. Fourth balloon is making your supervised visits. Fifth balloon, and then as you can imagine, at some point there, and it was just, like you said, it's kind of a visual or a way for people to get a feel of what it'd be like for these individuals, be it foster children or birth parents. Yeah. So thank you for that. Great discussion, you guys. Loving this. I'm going to quickly plow through some of the other stuff that we were talking about. Again, for those who came late, we're just kind of walking through some of the aha moments of, what I thought I had heard and gleaned. Again, for continuing the conversation with QPI, it's really ongoing. It's more than just making sure that our new social workers are trained on QPI principles and the orientation, and more than just resource parent orientation. It's in every other venue that you gather people, any of the stakeholder groups, that you find an opportunity to include QPI narrative. I know that in my county, we'd have an all hands children and family services staff meeting get on the agenda. Annual meeting, foster parent recognition. How about when we train social workers on trauma-informed therapy, we invite the resource parents, so they're in the same room together. Ways in which that we can really encourage relationships, encourage partnerships, but always include the QPI narrative. I know one county actually has created a template that supervisors use when they do case consultation with their workers. They added QPI narrative to that. Again, just always keeping that eye open and finding opportunities to continue the conversation. Continuing on, remember to push in. This is something that our wonderful Carmela Hines said with Minnesota. She represented a smaller nonprofit agency in Minnesota that does foster care licensing and adoption. And for them to really feel included in the conversation about how to make the child welfare system better in these big counties and even bigger state Department of Human Services, the ability and the confidence to be able to push in, maybe even using some of the art of persuasion and skills that you learned. Also, don't remember to measure degree of change. What we're hoping is that you find a way that you can do some type of pre-post analysis when you do implement a change. This doesn't have to be rocket science. This does not have to be a review of literature. This does not mean you have to hire a consultant to do, systems implementation. When I went to a training with the Search Institute, that was it. They do something called PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act. And so it's very simple. And remember how Trudy in the panel a couple of weeks ago was talking about these little changes. But as each change leads in the movement in the right direction. But don't forget to even think about how we're going to really prove, especially to leadership, if the change is for the better. Again, you've heard many times about quality parenting outreach. You've heard about QPO. That's a program that QPI offers by using text messaging with resource parents. And it is led to a 75 to 80% response rate. So foster parents, with their permission, receive a text message saying, here's a link to a survey, 3 questions. That's it. It's easy, it's fast, but it helps you get fingers on the pulse of what's not working. What would you like to see changed, and has the change made things better? And then lastly, I think it was Carmela who said that the child is the center of the heart and the stakeholders are the heartbeat that surround the heart. I just included that because I thought that sounded really cool. Was that a kind of a good recap for those of you that were at the training or watched the video? Did I leave anything out? If you get a chance, try to find a time to connect with Trudy Petchovich from Miami County in Florida. She is the epitome of a QPI champion. She is full of passion and energy. And she was one of the panelists on Training 6, so love it. Every time she talks, I love it. Here's some quick examples, guys, of QPI in action. One of the things that Trudy has created with her staff is a QPI calendar. And it's not like you hand that out to other people, it's for you. And you can say, okay, this is the day of the month that I say thank you to a resource parent. This is the day of the month that I say thank you to a case manager or social worker. This is the day of the month that I'm going to reach across the aisle and talk to somebody who isn't familiar with QPI and see if they're willing to have a conversation. This is the day that I bring it up in court. This is the day where I talk to my supervisor and say, can I just present QPI at either sometime at an internal staff meeting, or if there's a community event that I can talk about QPI. So that was one really cool thing. Again, create a youth panel to present at annual state and local conferences as much as you can. And then also remember to compensate your youth. One of the things that Camilla said was the State Department of Human Services in Minnesota offered the youth that were participating in panels an Amazon gift card. And the youth goes, I don't use Amazon. So be cognizant, and that individual, ask questions about what would you like to see as a compensation for your time by lending us your voice. We had a good conversation at the training about swag. And I think it was Diana Macias who'd mentioned that she has swag for all new resource parents, all new social workers. And that is just a way to have that visual, something concrete to kind of remind them about what QPI is. She also said that they have created wallet-size emergency list of emergency resources that workers can share. In my county, we just did a trifold brochure, whatever works for you, but making sure that workers shove them in their briefcase or in their backpack when they're heading out into the field as a way to be more efficient in the communication of how we do our work. I think I had one more slide. And then this was, again, hosting training, but asking that both social workers and foster parents be in the same room. Not only are they learning the same thing, but they're also networking. By keeping the momentum, by having these regular meetings, be it a QPI steering committee or a QPI work group, take notes, especially with staff turnover, guys. If I had a nickel for every time that I've heard county staff say, I don't know what QPI did prior to the pandemic, that record keeping is so important to make sure that we're documenting what we've agreed to, and then also making assignments on who's going to follow up with what. Another example of QPI in action, make sure that foster parents have access to their medical records. And that was something, and actually it wasn't Trudy, it was Patty Bowles that met with medical clinics and figured out a way that resource parents have access to the medical records of the foster children in their care. I know it seems like, well, of course they should. They didn't in her county. And she put the energy into making sure that that is something that happens for her resource parents. Diane Macias talked about a dedicated placement team that is trained in QPI and comfort calls. And while you might say, well, that's not a big deal, what she says by dedicated is that they're not going to get pulled off into other disciplines or other projects. Similar to during the pandemic, we were all hands on deck. Let's keep the lights on. We've got to handle these emergencies. But she is really focused on getting the right training and the right staff on that placement team that has the experience and the knowledge and the training that makes sure that they're doing their work with a QPI lens. And we've already talked about weaving QPI language into not only just your placement policy, but also just into everything that we do. Can we create a script for our receptionists that actually has a QPI lens to what they're saying, to helping people just put their foot into the door and asking an inquiry and making a call into child welfare. So those were just some of the examples that I shared or that I had picked up on when I was watching the training. So I hope that was somewhat helpful. Again, the intent of training number 6 was really to show you what QPI looks like in action, give you tangible examples of bringing QPI down to the grassroots level, as well as people who've been doing it for years, what have they learned? Hence the pearls of wisdom I was talking to you about. Alyssa, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I know you need to log off, so you take care. Good luck with you in your job.
Thank you so much. Have a
All
good
right,
day.
take care. So this is where I'm going to turn it over to you guys, because we really want your feedback. Obviously, we had a structure to how the 6 months of training went. We had the training, we had discussion, and then we had the small group coaching. Give me your honest feedback about that kind of, 3 events per month. And give me your feedback about the topics of the training. How did you feel about each of the training topics? Were there some that you preferred more than others? Any advice or any ideas now that you're officially trained and graduated about how we could maybe do it differently? Thoughts?
Overall, I liked how the model was set up, that we had the initial presentation and then we broke into smaller and smaller groups. I know with me being in Kern, when we met, it was with Humboldt, and it was such a contrast because they're such a smaller county versus Kern. So it was nice to hear the things that they were doing and the areas that they wanted to work on versus over here in Kern, and then just being able to share resources and information with all the counties, whether it's in California or other states as well. So I do really enjoy how the setup was. I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate it. Thank you for that. I have heard some folks that they felt that the small group coaching was somewhat repetitive to the discussion. Did anybody feel that way? Or how about this question? Are 3 meetings a month too much? How did that fit with you and your work schedule?
Yeah, I thought it was just fine.
Okay.
I liked all of it. It got a little tricky having it be on Tuesdays because I would miss the same meeting. First, I missed the same meeting once a month, and that's tricky because we only met on that Tuesday. So maybe switching up the days a little bit.
Okay.
We also had lots of like technical issues. Like even though QPI as a whole seems to be like really technically savvy and like I can access things, I have like 5 QPI calendars on my Outlook now. And I'm not exactly sure. And then they're like untitled, so I don't know where those came from. And then we weren't able to get emails from your organization, which really, really affected just overall, the process. And I wish that we could have figured that out. I know it's beyond me for sure, but even now, your messages are still quarantined for 3 weeks before we get them. So,
ouch, that kind of hurts. Well, it wasn't for lack of trying from Nate's side, right, Nathan?
Right.
You were working very hard on trying to fix that. Christine, you have your hand up, and then Melissa. Oh, you're on mute. Oh, there we
Sorry,
go.
I'm a little bit half engaged right now because I'm dealing with a placement disruption, but I'm definitely listening. But I wanted to go ahead and jump in. And I wanted to say, I really appreciated this whole series and this whole process more than most that I've been in, and I've been in lots. The best part for me was the Reno conference. I know not everybody was able to attend, but I got the most from that, and it's the most memorable. I did like the small group kind of reinforcing and breaking it down and being able to hear other people's reactions. I actually one of my also favorite parts. My suggestion, and I don't know how feasible it is, frankly, but it's been a little bit tricky here to get things off the ground, to make them tangible, to get them moving. I've been trying to reach out to, Gilbert and even Amber, even though she's moved on, to get some help with that. And of course they have a lot going on. So it's been tricky. My thought is if we could have some, people might not like this, some homework along the way to actually do and then report back. So that not just saying, oh, we could put this up in the lobby, oh, maybe this, oh, maybe that, but actually do it while we're in the champion process and then report back, and then be able in maybe these small groups to work out the kinks in what we're trying. Because right now it does still feel like I love all our ideas and we haven't done them.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. So it's almost like not only, it's not like I'm going to give you homework, like talk to QPI to somebody else, but let's give you a tangible project. Like let's create a brochure or, and you don't even need to create it. There's one on the QPI website. And so create a distribution plan or have a conversation with leadership. So kind of helping you making those steps along the way through the training.
Yeah, and by the way, I forgot to mention one little win here, which is that I have taken on, just in my division, which is 6 supervisors and all their staff, I've taken on doing a newsletter for the division. And I said the only way I'm taking this on is if I can put QPI information at the bottom of every edition. So that's a start, right?
Oh, props to you, Christine. Good job. That's so great. Melissa and then Albert.
And what I was going to say kind of goes along the lines with Christine, and is that it can seem a bit, when you mentioned some people are saying things are repetitive. I'm a firm believer in you get out what you put in to something. And if we can get, like, for instance, here in Kern, if we can really get management involved and leadership involved, they'll see just how important this is. And they'll allot more time to have people go through these trainings and to really push for QPI forward practice and policy. And then with what she was saying about like homework or things like that, yeah, have tangible evidence of, putting something together and seeing how it works. Like we need to be kind of the guinea pigs for these things and see what works and what doesn't, and then share that information out.
I love it. I love it. But like you also said, Melissa, too, that making sure that you have the buy-in and the direction and the support from leadership to allow you to really do that, which is also something that Humboldt's struggling with. Okay, Albert.
I had to get my mute unmuted. I don't recall exactly which training it was, but when we were breaking out into small groups, one of the challenges was, what kinds of things can we do? Do like a brainstorming of things that we can initiate on our level. And I know that we did a breakout and then we discussed it and we said, those of us that are CDSS, maybe we should be, we were spread out in all the groups and we suggested, put us in one group because let's face it, there's a lot of us here from CDSS and that's exciting that we're here. And most of us are from the licensing division. And most of those licensing division are from the Children's Residential Program, which is for congregate care of children. And we're kind of an odd duck because we're not social workers, but we have direct influence in the system, and through our influence, we can integrate a lot of the QPI principles and the way that we conduct ourselves. But I would just say that in future trainings, be mindful of our difference in CDSS, so that when we're trying to work out how can we influence things, it's different than in on the county level or with the social workers or with the RFA specialists. Those are all incredibly important, but in terms of our participation, we kind of have to work within our wheelhouse in order to activate or activate, in order to operationalize some of the initiatives of QPI. And another thing I wanted to say was, it's all persuasion. We had a nice training on persuasive speaking, and the instructor rightly identified ethos, logos, and pathos as the 3 primary components. Thanks to our friend, Mr. Aristotle, we have that. And ethos and logos, we're all used to that. Every report we write has ethos and logos. It has logical layout of what we have to say. It's based in regulations and standards. So we have the ethos, but the pathos And it came out here in this discussion today. The pathos comes from stories and experience, just like the experience that Juanita brought to her training by moving people around to different tables. That affects you in the pathos region, in the passion for it. And stories convey the pathos more than any description of anything. And so I think it's really, and you know, not just stories, but poems. Look how they inject, and it starts with the pathos. It doesn't end with the pathos. It's that passion and that personal understanding that hits you and opens your heart. That's to me, that's like, that has to be the lead. And kudos to those who led their meeting with that wonderful poem, because that's exactly what it did. It opened everyone's heart. Now we can talk about the ethos and logos on the right level, which would be a very emotional level of understanding. So just those observations.
Oh, I so love it. Thank you, Albert. That's just really powerful. You know, it's so interesting because, you know, Christine had mentioned how she got so much from the Reno conference. And I know a lot of CDSS staff are there too. And what I keep hearing over and over and over, that the most powerful part of that Reno conference was that team panel, or when the birth mom stood up and told her own personal story. So just to support what you're saying, Albert, it's true. It's the stories that help us with the passion and the empathy and, you know, the grace to do the work that we do. And yeah, so well said. Well said. What a great discussion, you guys. Thank you, Humboldt County, for sharing that poem, Jamie. It's beautiful. Thank you. Lovely. It really is. I have been making a list of things about who I'm going to follow up with from various counties based on the conversation that we had today. Again, our work is just starting, but Carol Schofer and I will not be strangers. And again, another pitch for that California conference in April, more to come. Ruben, I'll make sure you get the information. I believe it's April 14th in San Diego, so more to come on that. And before I let you go, let's see if this even works. It's so funny that I would even do this. Let's see if I can do it. Your graduation hats, you guys. You can actually do that evidently under the top video. Actually, upload graduation hats. So just know how much I appreciate you guys. It has just been a true honor to work with you. I have to tell you that one of the things that I really value about my job as a champion group leader is it's all about relationships. And I feel like I've really gotten to know you guys so much better. And thank you for your commitment to children. Thank you for going down this path with us in this journey. And again, let's continue the good work. I so appreciate you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And have a great rest of your day. And I'll see some of you in person in California. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you. Congratulations. See you later. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks, Ruben. Take care, guys. Thanks, everybody.